Hey everyone, John here! And in an age where HDMI has taken over, where most TVs only have an HDMI port, and most capture cards too, it's become quite difficult to play and capture your older consoles. Now you could resort to a cheapo thing like this. They're all over eBay and Amazon, and they are utter garbage. They cost next to nothing, but they cost next to nothing for a reason, because the image quality is terrible and the input lag becomes nearly unplayable. Avoid these things, they're not worth your time. You could resort to much better scalers though, like the OSSC, or the RetroTink, which is what I use for most videos. And these things are great, especially the RetroTink, but they're also quite costly. So what if you only care about the GameCube, and you just want premium quality out of this system? Well, here is EON's solution, the GCHD Mark II. And what's special about this one is it is Spice Orange. This has just been announced, and we were lucky enough to get sent a preview unit. But this is of course still the same Mark II, only it's made to match the beautiful Spice Orange GameCube. The best GameCube of them all. And it is extremely easy to use this thing. Just turn your GameCube around, and check that it has both of these ports here. It needs both the AV out and the digital out made for component. Not every GameCube has these, so ensure that yours does before ordering a copy of the GCHD. But if you have these ports, then it is as simple as just sliding it in, pushing it down to make sure it's definitely all the way in, otherwise it won't quite pick up the signal, and that's it. You've got a Spice Orange GameCube, capable of HDMI out, so it'll work on any modern TV, and pretty much any modern capture card. It can put out so many resolutions, 480i, 480p, 240p, 576i, it just goes on and on and on. Basically any game, any display you throw at this thing, it'll be able to output a beautiful image. Now, how about the best possible image quality for this thing? Well, previously we've talked about a program called Swiss, which is basically GameCube Homebrew. If you want to figure out how to install that, check out our Game Boy interface video, there's a link in the description below. But once this thing is on your GameCube, you can force essentially any game to launch in any resolution. And this includes PAL games. Now here in Europe, for the most part, when holding down B when booting a game, instead of being given the option of interlaced or progressive scan, we were given the option of 50Hz or 60Hz. So most PAL games are still interlaced. That's our shortcoming. We get 60Hz, but we're running an interlace the entire time. But with Swiss, you can force any game, even PAL games, to launch at 480p. So suddenly, all these games that were interlaced only can run in progressive scan, and that's the best possible output for the GCHD. This thing does do a decent job with interlaced images. It has something called a bob deinterlacing, which is what the OSSC is quite famous for. It basically just kind of wobbles the image up and down, which can be a bit distracting, but it does deinterlace and it plays well, even if the bobbing is definitely noticeable. But ignore that though, because you can play anything in 480p or 240p if you want. Because of course, while the GameCube has a big library with lots of games to play, the main reason you'd use a GameCube in the year of 2024 is of course the Game Boy player. Actual Game Boy hardware just stuffed into this square and fully playable on the GameCube. And if you're using Swiss and the Game Boy interface, you're going to get a much better image quality than the actual Game Boy player disc. This is basically the most authentic way to get Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance games in such high quality. And it looks fantastic with this device and Game Boy interface. But another thing that's really good about the GCHD Mark II is there's two ports on this thing. Let me show you. So there's an HDMI out right there, which most people will use. Let's make sure that's focused. But over here, there's a port for the Wii's SCART and component out. And using this, not only can you be capturing GameCube footage in HDMI via your capture card, but you can also get this one right here, plug it into your CRT, and play in the most beautiful quality you can possibly get out of your GameCube via an actual CRT screen while capturing with an HD display, which, that's just perfect. I unfortunately only have a black Game Boy player, but orange ones do exist. So if you were to get your orange Game Boy player, stuff it onto your orange GameCube, and have the orange GCHD, you would have a beautiful Spice Orange set. And I'm kind of tempted to do that right now, but I'll be good. I'll be good. But yeah, this looks absolutely stunning. It's very subtle. It's just this little adapter on the side of your GameCube. And this button here syncs with infrared remotes. And using this, you can actually put on a few options too, like scan lines, or you can turn on and off the line doubling, and so much more. This thing just is so simple, it's great, and if you've got other scalers like the RetroTink, perhaps this is less of a necessity, but if you're someone who just wants to play their GameCube games in the best quality, and you're not worried about all the other consoles like Dreamcast and Saturn and PlayStation 1 and Super Nintendo, then this does the job, and honestly, the image quality is probably even better than this, because it's not just converting SCART to HDMI, it's taking a raw digital signal from your GameCube's digital output, which is basically going to give you image quality comparable to the official GameCube component cables, and those things are crazy expensive, whereas this is pretty affordable for what it is. Anyway, have you got one of these? And if so, are you going to get one in Spice Orange? Let us know in the comments below, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.